About 3,000 years ago, the author of Genesis wrote, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." As I mentioned in the last video, which if you haven't watched the previous video, please stop this one and go back and watch that previous video to help you get the point of this video. So the first sentence in Genesis is describing the creation out of nothing. God did not create out of any pre-existing materials, and the phrase translated as the heavens and the earth means everything, the entire universe. So in one sentence, Genesis 1:1 separates Judaism and Christianity from the creation accounts of almost every other religion throughout history. With majestic simplicity, the author of the opening chapter of Genesis thus differentiated his viewpoint not only from that of the ancient creation myths of Israel's neighbors, but also effectively from pantheism, such as found in Eastern religions like Hinduism and Taoism, from panentheism, whether of classical Neoplatonist vintage or 20th century process theology, and from polytheism, ranging from ancient paganism to contemporary Mormonism. This simple statement also agrees with what current science has discovered about the universe. The Bible teaches that there was a beginning to all matter, space, energy, and time. This is not a case of taking our present knowledge of science and reading it back into the biblical text. The New Testament writers and the early Christian church fathers ascribed the existence of the universe to God alone. God is described as the ultimate source of all existing things. The Gospel of John begins with a statement about who created and the fact that he created all things. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Irenaeus, in his book Against Heresies, defended creation out of nothing in the 2nd century. Both Genesis 1:1 and John 1:1 begin with the statement, "in the beginning." In the 4th century, with only the Bible as his source, Augustine wrote, "God made the heaven and earth in the beginning, not in the beginning of time, but in Christ, since he was the Word with the Father, through which and in which all things were made." God, after all, also made times, and that is why there were no times before he made any. And if time began to be together with heaven and earth, no time can be found in which God had not yet made heaven and earth. This sure sounds like Lemaitre's concept of a now without a yesterday. Augustine argued that time itself is part of the created order, and that the universe was created out of nothing, two ideas that modern science didn't agree with for over 1,500 years after Augustine. Jewish and Christian scholars, using only the biblical texts, both described current cosmology long before the first evidence of our current theory. You just saw that Irenaeus in the 2nd century and Augustine in the 4th century both affirmed the doctrine of creation out of nothing. Augustine added that there was also a beginning of time. The following passage was written by a Jewish scholar in the 12th century. Notice the mention of the expanding universe. At the briefest instant following creation, all the matter of the universe was concentrated in a very small place, no larger than a grain of mustard. The matter at this time was very thin, so intangible that it did not have real substance. It did have, however, a potential to gain substance and form and to become tangible matter. From the initial concentration of this intangible substance in its minute location, the substance expanded, expanding the universe as it did so. As the expansion progressed, the change in the substance occurred. This initially thin, non-corporeal substance took on the tangible aspects of matter as we know it. From this initial act of creation, from this ethereal, thin pseudo-substance, everything that existed or will ever exist was, is, and will be formed. The parallel between Big Bang cosmology and what the Bible teaches is astounding. Christian theology teaches that all matter, time, and energy were created out of nothing by God, and this teaching was around thousands of years before science discovered it. The scientist who discovered the cosmic microwave background radiation, Arno Penzias, is quoted as saying, "The best data we have are exactly what I would have predicted had I nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole." American astronomer Robert Jastrow has said, "For the scientist who lived by his faith in the power of reason, The story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He is about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. Our current model for the universe includes the fact that space is, and has been since the beginning, expanding. Job 9, 1 through 10, and Zechariah 12:1 in the Old Testament teach that God stretches out the universe. Now, there is some controversy if this stretching out is the same kind of expansion that current science is referring to, but it does make you think, especially since Jewish theologians prior to the 20th century wrote about an expanding universe. Christian doctrine for the last 2,000 years has held that the universe had a beginning. For the vast majority of this time, the prevailing scientific view was that the universe was past and future eternal. Today, the scientific evidence for an absolute beginning to time, space, and matter continues to mount. Since God created the universe and also inspired the biblical writings, we should not be surprised with this astounding agreement between the Christian scriptures and nature. Genesis 1:1 should be a reason to embrace the Christian faith.